How to better fund Europe? The question is back on the table this week in the European Parliament. The main issue is to reform the European Union own resources system to fill up the EU budget. Mario Monti, the former Italian Prime Minister and now chair of the high-level group on own resources, came to discuss the idea with MEPs. Today, the annual European budget is around 142 billion euros, an amount which is largely financed by the 28 member states. Around 85% comes from national contributions, the other 15% comes from value-added tax. But it has not always been like this. In the past, the founding fathers of the European Union created a budget based on its own resources. For example, in 1951, the European Coal and Steel Community was financed through direct levies on coal and steel production. But in the end of the 80s, the idea of having a long-term EU budget came, and a resource based on each member state's gross national product was added. So the richer ones pay more than the poorer ones. Today, the four largest net contributors to the EU budget are Germany, France, Italy and the UK. The chair of the Budget Committee in the European Parliament, Jean Arthuis, explains why the EU's own resources budget system has gradually been replaced by contributions from EU countries.
D'une part, le budget a pris de la consistance, qu'il n'avait pas à l'origine, et que d'autre part, les droits de douane se sont étiolés au fur et à mesure de la signature de contrats de libre-échange.
According to Mario Monti, having an EU budget largely funded by the money of member states is a problem, because they choose to fund areas depending on their national interests, but it also creates a lack of trust between them.
This lack of trust is also fed by a system of financing the budget of the European Union so largely based on national contributions. It's a low-level marchandage where if a member state gains, another one loses. The European Union is exactly the opposite of this. If it works, everybody gains.
Until 2016, the former Italian Prime Minister will preside a high-level group represented by the three European institutions, charging to review who pays what and when to the EU budget. Coming back to an EU's own resources system is an ongoing debate, but where will this money come from? The high-level group suggests new own resources coming from value-added tax or from financial tax transactions, or also via a European tax. According to Mr. Arthuis, an EU tax would help to decrease the amount of unpaid bills from member states, which are around 25 billion euros in 2014. But this, he said, should not be an extra charge for the member states. For him, an EU carbon tax to imports would be easier to implement.
L'Union européenne ne peut pas continuer à prescrire, à imposer aux entreprises qui produisent en Europe le respect de normes environnementales et accepter que viennent sur le marché européen des produits qui ont été manufacturés, qui ont été confectionnés sans aucun respect des normes environnementales. Donc ce ne serait pas trahir les exigences de concurrence loyale que d'imposer à l'importation une taxe carbone.
According to the French liberal, this carbon tax could bring around 10 billion euros to the EU. But for Mario Monti, there is one important thing to do before coming up with specific proposals.
Because we need to create a common awareness that the present system really does not work, and then to come up with proposals.
However, going to a European fiscal governance system will not please the member states. They are not ready to give up their power when talking about money. But for Mr. Arthuis, maybe they should.
Il vient un moment où les États membres, à l'heure de la mondialisation, doivent se demander si leur souveraineté est encore effective. Ils affichent bien vite leur impuissance. En matière fiscale, les Européens se livrent à une véritable guerre de concurrence.
Ideas are on the table, but at the end, increasing the financial autonomy of the European Union will remain a big challenge.